Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Manxiety Podcast.
We're your hosts, Ashad and Matt. Before we get started, if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe so you can get notified of new episodes.
If you want to share this with your friends, you can find us on all podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Hi, everyone. Quick note about this week's episode. We recorded this a couple of weeks ago, but had some authors on and some other good content, so we released those before releasing this one. So some of the things you may hear may be outdated. We talk a little bit about being away and about an event we went to. All of those happened almost a month ago now. On to the episode.
Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Back again. Da-na-na.
I don't think that's how that song starts, Matt.
That's like 100% how it is.
No, dude, it's not guess who's back, guess who's back, guess who's back, back again. It's guess who's back, back again. Shady's back, tell a friend. Guess who's back, 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 guess who's back. Da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na-na.
Well, you know,
I've created a monster. Nobody wants to see Shady. Some. That's how it goes. You're gonna sing a song, get it right, Matt. Come on.
Wow. Really humbled me there. Yeah, well, I mean, I probably fucked it up. That's fine. I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to cut it. Who gives a shit? Anyways, we're back.
It's all good. If you don't know who Eminem is, it's okay.
Yes. We are back. You mean like the candy? Or like the most highest grossing rapper ever? Anyways, we're back. We took a little bit of a break there. But really, we took a week off. We hope you enjoyed it too. You didn't have to listen to me droning on and a shot talking about the house. However, because we're back from break and we have tons of shit to talk about today, not only just with humility, but also what's going on in our lives. Speaking of doing shit for the house, a shot, would you like to talk about what you've been up to?
You really enjoy just talking about me doing stuff on the house, don't you?
It's like the best running joke meme I could possibly think of.
I like it. And I do want to remind you, Matt, that last week we were on with the author on last week's episode.
Yeah. That's right. My time of reference is off, I think.
Sorry, guys. We're we were off for a week, then we're recording kind of early. Matt's still trying to figure out what day of the week it is, so we have to forgive him.
Again, I'm getting humbled here. Real quick, like.
But yeah, I did do work on the house. Thanks for mentioning that, Matt. Blew out some concrete, put some new stepstones, bought sod for the first time, which is like grass that's grown and you can buy it and plant it. Right? Like it's not seeds, but it's already grass. So overall it was a pretty cool experience. I'd never bought sod or installed it. And then I changed up the front of my house a little bit, which I've been meaning to do for a while, which was very cool. And I just enjoy doing stuff like that. I don't know. Like, I get tired sometimes, and I've talked about kind of like I got housework going on all the time, but I have also realized that I like being out there and doing stuff versus being inside and watching TV or doing something else. And kind of along with that, Matt and I were at an event last week, 2 weeks ago. Anyway, recently, called Bequinox, and that's kind of partially what this episode will be about, but also it kind of it relates to what I was saying, right? Because I like being outdoors so much and doing stuff outdoors. Like, this is an event that's held in the middle of the desert, where you take everything you need because there's literally nothing out there. And yeah, you're just kind of out there in nature doing stuff, helping people, hanging out with people, meeting new people. It's a really, really, really cool event. Like, I think I touched my phone
I gotta go and check. But I like my phone was not in use for the like 4 or 5 days I was there. I think I took it out to like I used it as an alarm in the mornings, and I took some pictures, and then I don't know, like responded to a text or something that someone had sent me. But outside of that, I was very much, I'm out here just like trying to detox from technology, and it was really nice. I think I mentioned I enjoy doing that when I go on camping trips or on vacation and stuff. I kind of just like leave my phone alone. So it was really cool, being able to do that and kind of being in this environment with like all these people and like all these activities to do and stuff. How's your week, Matt? Or your experience? Or what do you have going on? Nothing, as always.
I'm always the one that's got something going on, bro.
I don't know, man. Last couple of weeks, you were like, "Yeah, guys, I got nothing going on. I'm feeling good. There's nothing going on in my life right now."
Yeah, things were just going pretty well, and I was enjoying that. Right, like there's some things I gotta deal with coming up. Like I'll be finding a new place to live. Couple other random things, like I'll be done with all my training stuff at work, so I'll be like officially live and on real calls instead of the like fake. They're not fake, but you know what I mean, like dry run calls type stuff, right? Like just practice stuff for product.
you were just using one of those little baby phones that aren't connected to anything.
It's pretty much how they're treating
fake
you right
phone
now.
Calls.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you get like an easy bake oven. And that's basically what I have is like a phone setup that doesn't actually call anybody. But
but with easy bake ovens, you can still make cookies and stuff.
Yeah, and with this fake phone that we're describing, I can still yell down the hallway, but people are just only going to hear me there. So when you work remote, the only people that hear you scream are yourself. But yeah, it's been good. I got a coach at work, which is cool because my work will pay for coaching services, and I signed up and got involved with somebody. I've never had like a coach before. I know we talked about like our coaching episode, like getting a coach and like the differences and like having somebody like in my life who's a coach, but this person's like just somebody who I don't know who's just a coach. And we discussed the difference between
like a coach by profession, right?
Like he's like a personal coach, right? So he's like, I've coached executives, I've coached whatever. Like, what do you want to work on? And it's really interesting because it's like compared to therapy, I was like, I have a personal trainer, I've been to therapy, like I've done all that stuff, right? And he said, at least with the therapy side, like it's more focused on the past, about what happened in the past and understanding it and making sense of it. Whereas he's like, coaching is just forward. We're not really going to talk so much about the past. It's more about what are you doing today and tomorrow to achieve your goals. So it's kind of fun to do like a goal workshop session with somebody who does it for a living and can like explain it and stuff in like very simple terms. Because it's like, hey, what do you want to do? Well, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. And like I've already thought about a lot of it, right, with just goals that I set for myself anyways. So coming into that environment and then just having another person to bend their ear each week and just say, hey, this is what I did here, this is what I did this, the event we went to, like this is what happened there, this is how I challenged myself this way, or maybe I didn't challenge myself, what I want to work on better, whatever. So that was really like eye-opening for a lot of it, like the way that he explained different things, like analogies using. So I'll probably do like a catch-up on that in like a future episode. And then speaking of the event, right, like it was awesome. We got to be out. We got to camp in the desert, see our friends, people that we know only through the event that we haven't seen in years. Because, it hasn't happened for, like 2.5 years, right? Because of COVID. So it's really cool to just kind of be back at it, be one with nature, and really kind of like a shot said, speaking with the episode stuff on humility, like humble yourself in a lot of ways, right? You're like, oh, I need to survive in the wild, basically. How do I do that?
We use wild kind of loosely. We did have an RV, and Matt used camping kind of loosely as well, because we did have an RV this year. So, we had
way to ruin the magic. Yes,
I know.
But we still had to, bring water, and it's not just about where you're sleeping. It's like, are you sleeping well still, right? Like you're kind of in
Right.
like a, it's not like my bed is super comfortable. It's not as comfortable as that, of course, but it's like, okay, the RV shaking, there's sound, there's music, there's things going on. Like, are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough food? Are you doing things for your body, right? Like I have a Whoop wristwatch, and it was pissed off at me for the 3 days. It's like, you slept 4 hours, your heart rate was up, this was up, whatever. And it was also interesting because it's like, one of the reasons this may happen is if you're drinking alcohol. And I was like, I was drinking alcohol and not sleeping a lot and still trying to take care of myself and my mental health and my body. And it was just very kind of humbling to be like, wow, like if I don't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I feel like a zombie. If you do that plus drinking, plus do it three nights in a row,
You feel great. It's amazing how that happens.
you're kind of you're certainly masking some of the symptoms, but it's kind of it's just interesting how it's like, this is just what people used to do, right? You used to have to just kind of fend for yourself. No, it's not like we had to like go hunt for food, right? We weren't doing anything too extreme. I had a
some
box
people
of
did.
cookies.
Some people hunted, went around, tried to find camps that had food.
True. And there were a lot of great camps that had food. And yeah, it's just a way to remember that, like, it's kind of like you are special, but you're not, right? Like, we're just human beings. We all have needs and comforts and things that we want, right? To be happy and everything. But at the end of the day, like, the person on the other side of you in that negotiation or that Zoom meeting or whatever, they're just a person too, right? We all have insecurity, struggles, whatever. And just when you're in a place where people aren't judging you for any of that, and you can just kind of run around and say like, hey, I want to do this goofy thing, or, oh, I really like your art project or whatever. It's just really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm happy I got to be a part of it. I'm happy I got to, talk a shot's ear off for the drive, because there was a bit of a drive for us, which was fun. I'm happy I got to be in an RV. I'm happy about it. I think it's like a reset switch that people need to do every once in a while, to just remember that there are, when you go back to your meetings and things, and it's like, this person didn't email me back on time or whatever. It's all just kind of BS, and take a step back from it and remember your roots and everything. So
Yeah, I agree. I actually want to read, but we've kind of talked about the Daily Stoic before, but there was, obviously they kind of talk about this too, because it is a Stoic virtue, kind of this humbling. And I do want to read kind of an excerpt from one of them, one of the emails that I got regarding this. And it goes, power and success are intoxicating. They stain us purple, to use Marcus Aurelius' expression, warping and changing us, puffing up our egos. Which is why it's so important that we have some practices in our lives that humble us, that keep us in touch with how we used to be, and of course, how most people on the planet are. Doesn't matter what it is, you must find ways to escape that imperialization that Marcus warned against. You must do things that remind you of who you are, which is, and always will be, a regular person who is no better and no more special than anyone else. Marcus had a very... he had an excerpt in his meditations, and it talked about how... I don't think that's on this excerpt that I'm reading here. But it talked about how... Was it Andrew the Great? Is that who I'm... No. Alexander the Great. Mm-hmm. Talked about how, obviously during his time, Alexander the Great was kind of before his time. Talked about how Alexander the Great was buried in the same way that his horse caretaker was buried. And like kind of in the end, right? Like after you're gone, there is no difference between, it doesn't matter what you've done your whole life. Everyone, it's like the same destination, right? Which he reminded himself of this to humble himself. I think it is very important to remember this because we're very, what's the best way to put it? Fortunate, right? Living, I guess, we are really fortunate, me and Matt, living where we are. There are other parts of the U.S. that aren't as fortunate. People there that aren't as fortunate. There are other parts of the world that are even less fortunate. So it is important to remember that sometimes, that, the fact that you have a bed to sleep in every night, You're fortunate for having that. The fact that you have a mattress to sleep on, that you have warmth and comfort, that you have food and water readily available, right? That you have medicine, that you have, maybe friends or family around you, like all of these things. We have to remember that we're very fortunate because there are other people in the world that don't have a lot of this. And there are people that have more, but we all have to remember that we don't want to let that get to our heads, right? We don't want to, as Marcus Aurelius put it, right, this whole imperialization, we don't want to allow it to stain us purple. And he used that stain us purple because purple is the color of royalty, right? And Marcus Aurelius obviously became the emperor of Rome. And what he was trying to say was that he doesn't want the fact that he's emperor to change who he is, for him to become someone else. He wants to remember his roots, where he came from. He wants to be able to continue connecting with the people that he's ruling. And I think similarly, sometimes in our lives, we get to a stage, whether it's with our employees, right? If you become an executive or a manager or something, and you kind of forget who you were when you weren't a manager or you weren't an executive, right? You start treating the people beneath you differently. And you don't realize that, like, you went through a lot of those same things and that you're no better than they are. You guys are the same. Or with someone else, right? Like someone you meet somewhere on the street, or even, kind of as I'm going through this journey of like becoming a father soon, people forget, right, as parents, that they were kids once, and that they went through a lot of things that the kids are going through, right? You were curious, you like to challenge authority, you like to, do things you weren't supposed to do, you like to break rules, kind of all of these different things, and you kind of forget that, or a lot of parents do. And you're like, no, like, you can't do this, right? Like, you're not allowed to do this, and you get so mad, and you get so angry about it. But you forget that you probably did a lot of those same things when you were young too, and it's just a part of growing up. So experiences like these, right, like what we went to, and me going camping or all these other places, or like I said, even going to an event like this, it helps us. It keeps our head away from the clouds, right? It helps ground us and realize that we're like everyone else. And you can do this at a smaller level, right? At a very basic level. If you're someone that enjoys always eating at very nice restaurants, right? Maybe one day you go to a hole-in-wall random place down the street, like a random diner, right? With no award-winning chefs and no, world-renowned cuisine or something. And that might be a way that you kind of start going down that path. Or if you're someone that enjoys driving, that always drives a luxury car or wears luxury clothing and stuff, maybe you just go and buy, a top from Target or something, or, go on, I don't know, a road trip and rent a regular car or something, right? Just to realize that, like, yeah, you may have all these things, but that that doesn't make you any better than anyone else that doesn't have these things. Right? Instead of driving to the grocery store, next time you walk there, right? And you realize that there are people that don't have cars that need to walk, and kind of walk a mile in their shoes.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of having the inflated sense of ego,
right?
Like they're kind of slightly opposed in that sense, right? Like if you're driving the really nice car and you're having like the nice clothes and all this stuff because you have a good paying job, well, then you might go around the world thinking like your shit don't stink, right? And that's, I think, where that, like when you're talking earlier about the CEOs and stuff, like that's where that divide starts to happen, is people who kind of make it in life, or maybe they had a bunch of advantages and they don't understand what it's like to struggle, to suffer, And then they just kind of go like, oh, why don't they just work harder? Why don't people just do whatever? Not realizing that, the system is pretty one-sided for a lot of people, right? Like they're kind of set up to struggle and they'll just do it. And when you can, bring yourself down to that perspective, you're going to learn a lot. And for me, like one of the most humbling things I've ever done was do jiu-jitsu, because, I'm large. I'm 6'3", I'm like 195 pounds, and I would get beat up by people that were 14, like 110 pounds. I'd get beat up by people half my size and stuff, right? Because when it comes to just purely...
I don't know if that's a humbling experience, Matt. I mean, anyone can beat you up.
Sure. Definitely not now. But, because you're... In that arena where I'm not trying to use my strength, and I'm not trying to use my weight on them. I'm trying to just do pure technique. Like, they're better at it than me, right? Now, of course, if we were at the same level, like, weight class exists for a reason, right? If we're at the same exact skill level, my weight's an advantage, my strength is an advantage, all that stuff. But when you start to realize, like, oh, I'm not as strong as I thought I was. I'm not as good as I thought I was. Even when I start using strength or weight against people, they can still beat me because they've been doing it for so long.
And they have better technique, right?
Exactly. Or they catch you in something you weren't thinking of, right? Like you start getting blind thinking, oh, I've never been caught in this particular move. Now, oh shit, I got caught in that move. Like, what do? You panic and you tap. Well, when you start to realize, like, those things are skills that you can learn. And you can learn to be humble, right? You can kind of treat it as a skill, like doing these things, right? Like walk to work, see what it's like, go camp in the desert, do things where you don't have those comforts. And we could have taken it a step further, right? We could have camped instead of gotten an RV, but we were just like, hey, this is something new. Let's try it out. I want to rent an RV. Let's do it. And of course, there were still parts of it that sucked, right? Like sandstorms and things in our eyes, and trying to figure out how to use wet wipes to shower. It's whatever, normal camping stuff. But when I came home, like my hot water in my shower was like the greatest thing ever. Yep. Right? My bed felt amazing. We got I got pizza with the shot after we came home, and it was this really, really highly rated pizza place. And I told him, I was like, I don't know if this is just me not having eaten real food in a few days, or if this is really just the highest rated pizza ever, but I think it's probably the best pizza I've ever had.
Yep.
And everything just tasted sweeter, felt better, and kind of provided us that like perspective of, oh shit, like we do have it really well, right? We are very well off. And I had mentioned this to one of my friends just about a different experience. I think the coach that I was talking about too, where it's like on the like the ladder of success, right? It was called like a ladder, right? If it's just people walking up and down,
right?
Well, we mostly look up, right? We look up and we go, oh, I want to reach the ladder. I want to keep going higher. One more rung, one more this, right? But you don't realize if you look below you, there's millions, just kidding, it's billions of fucking people, if you're listening to this, because chances are you're in America, that probably don't have what you have. Like there's like like 2/3 of the world or a third of the world or something that doesn't have a toilet or running water or whatever. And then you go like, holy shit, like I had no clue, right? And the only way to know that is, if you're not looking it up, would be to like travel to some of these places, which it's something I want to work on once, hopefully COVID's kind of, I don't know, wrapped up, whatever the fuck. But, I want to start traveling to some of these places, because what you realize is some of the poorest people in the world are also some of the happiest, because they don't have that comparison to say, oh, well, I don't have the Model 5, I have the Model 3 or whatever the fuck, like the BMWs, right? Or like, I don't have the 7 Series, so like, I'm poor. And you're like, well, but not really, like you can still get to work, you still have all these advantages. And until like you kind of tackle your eagle, not your fucking eagle, your ego.
Yeah, you go tackle your eagles, guys.
Yeah. In that way, you don't realize how good you have it, right? And, it's all the negative visualization stuff in Stoicism too, right? Or like we talked about like the last day or like the last time exercise. You're like, if this was the last time I did this thing, you'd appreciate it more, because, even if it's something as simple as, what if this was the last time I got to drive a car?
Right.
Well, I wouldn't be distracted and looking around. I'd be like, wow, let me like feel the car and, whatever and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of it was really cool, and I think, yeah, it's like, especially with the jiu-jitsu thing, like getting humbled that quickly, you'd see people that would come in and they get beat up by people half their size. Their ego kicks in. There's no fucking way this person beat me. They cheated, whatever. And it's like, how can you cheat in like a physical game with somebody smaller than you, right? You either win or you lose. And then
you can kick them in the balls, and
I mean, sure, like you have somebody else beat them up and choke them out, and you go, "Oh, it was me." But you can see people that have that like cognitive dissonance when they come in and they get beat by somebody, and then they never show up again, because it's a tough thing to show up and to suck at something for like 6 months to a year. I mean, even after doing it for about 2 years, I still sucked at a lot of it. You just suck at it, but you keep showing up and you keep trying to get better. So it's like, do something that you're not good at to try to humble you, right? Like, hey, maybe you lost a button on your suit jacket or something, right? Normally you take it to a tailor. Well, tailor's pretty damn good at it, but maybe you try, hey, I'm going to watch a YouTube video and learn how to sew a button and see just how hard that one thing is. You're like, oh, that's got to be super simple, right? Because sometimes you might go to the tailor and they say, oh, we're charging you $10 or something to put this button on. I don't know what it actually costs. And you might be like, $10, that's fucking ridiculous, right? It's you press a button, you put a stitch in it, whatever. Until you realize how hard some of that manual labor stuff is,
right?
You don't have that perspective, right? Like construction workers work incredibly difficult jobs, right? To be on their feet all day, to be banging away at shit all day. And then you're like, well, why don't they just work harder or whatever? When we call things manual labor fucking sucks. Like,
I can attest to that.
Yeah, like go, before you're going to judge somebody at a fast food restaurant, like, oh, the guy fucked up my order. It's like, well, you try to manage a bunch of assholes yelling at him through the window, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Like, you try and do the job better, right? And I bet most people, I mean, I'm like, fuck, I wouldn't do that, right? Unless I was purposely trying to humble myself with it. But it's like, I also respect those people because I know that it sucks. It's like, I love this quote by Tom Hardy, where he says, I was raised to treat the janitor with the same respect as the CEO. Because there was something where I think he got out of his car and it's like a homeless guy, and he shook the guy's hand. And he said, like, oh, you're famous or something or whatever. And he's like, oh, like, hey, nice to meet you. I'm like, oh, sir, don't touch him. He's like, no, like, he's a person, and I was reading an article about him, and he's just like, yeah, like, I got lucky with what I'm doing. Right. I'm not hot shit. I'm not the greatest actor in the world. I got lucky. They put me in roles that are great at. Like, I do it because I love what I do. You pay me a lot of money. That's great. But I would do it for $5 as much as I would do it for 50 million, So, yeah. And, if you've been talking for a really long time, you can humble yourself by asking a question of, just like, hey, Ashot, what do you think?
Is that how that works?
I think so. I don't know. I'm not the best at being humble. Wait, was that me being humble? Shit.
No, I think if you say I'm not the best at being humble, shit, was that me being humble? That means you're not being humble.
Which is something I want to talk about after you say your points as well.
No, you can talk about it right now.
You want me to jump into it now? Okay. So one thing I also want to cover with humility and a little bit on ego as well is there's kind of this trap that people fall into where if you say, I don't have an ego, like to truly not have an ego, to truly be humble is an amazing thing. But if you go, I'm a very humble person, like kind of like I just did, right? I'm pretty good at that. Or I don't have an ego. It's almost like you don't have an ego about not, like you have an ego about not having an ego. Or you're
by saying that you don't have an ego, you're proving that you have an ego.
Right. Or by saying I'm really humble, a lot of times you're proving that you're not humble.
Right.
Because I've been in a lot of situations where I've helped people out that are like on the side of the road, or like when I was in college, somebody was refilling the milk trucks for like the Starbucks, and I just was walking by. He took the turn too fast, spilled the milk all over the street. Ooh. And I was probably like 50 feet away, so I'm still walking towards him. I saw like 10 people pass him, and I walked up and just started stacking the milks with him. And the guy's like, "Oh my god, thank you so much!" Like shit, because if so much of it spills, he's worried they're gonna charge him and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, like I've dropped shit on the floor before. Like maybe not a fuck ton of milks, right? But I've dropped other things that people have helped me. So it's like, and it's like I'm saying that as a thing of, oh, I did this thing. I didn't tell anybody about it really, but it's like now that I'm talking about it, it's like, am I less humble? But I'm just saying it to illuminate the point, right? But it's like, I don't give a shit if you give me kudos or not, or somebody listening, oh my God, that story was amazing, because it wasn't that great of a story. But also because it's like, you should just do that thing anyways, right? You shouldn't take the photo of you volunteering or helping somebody to say, oh my God, look, I was volunteering. Give me likes on Instagram, right? You should do it because you understand what it's like to struggle and to help those people. So just kind of be wary of that trap that you can fall into of, oh, I did drugs once. I had ego death. I don't have an ego anymore. It's like, but then you wouldn't need to tell everybody that, right? You wouldn't need to preach that constantly to people. And that's just not what it's about. So it was interesting hearing this. I was listening to an interview about that where somebody's like, the ego has one last trap door when you think you have no ego, which is now you go around telling people I have no ego. And it's kind of the same thing for humble, right? All these emotions we feel. So, let yourself feel it, but just recognize kind of your place in the world where you're at, and maybe do something where you decide, hey, I'm going to go camping. I'm going to go do something that's hard. I'm going to learn a new skill that's tough. I'm going to take a job on the weekends of this thing. Or even if you said, hey, I'm going to try to fucking live on $15 an hour, right? Like, I make more than $15 an hour. I'll be like, hey, I'm going to budget what would be $15 an hour after taxes, which is not that much money for minimum wage.
Yep.
And then think to yourself, could I live on this actual money before you start saying to somebody, why are we paying fast food workers $15 an hour? Because I'll tell you right now, a fast food worker probably works way harder than I do at my job, right? I mean, my stuff is quote unquote mental work, right? And tech work and stuff. But like in terms of how demanding it is and people screaming at you and shit, they probably work harder.
It's going to be funny if after this episode, Matt's unemployed. He's not working hard enough, guys. We had to let him go and hire a fast food worker who works harder than he does.
Hey, if anybody's listening from work, I'm just letting you know. I that was a joke.
No. It is true though. Kind of the higher you get, right, in management or whatever, the less work you do, which is a weird thing to think about, right? Like, if you go back to the construction example, right? You're a labor worker, you're doing all the work. You become like a floorman, you're doing a little bit less work and you're supervising. If you become a contractor, right, you're doing less work and you have a crew of people that are doing the work. If you become a general contractor, you're doing pretty much no work and you're just getting a bunch of subcontractors who are doing all the work for you. You're just organizing it. And so it's not that, like, I mean, obviously getting to those higher positions require more knowledge, more experience, more other things, but they require less work, right? I don't think there are any CEOs out there of bigger companies, right? Maybe if you're a small company just starting out, obviously you're doing a lot of work as CEO. But of bigger companies that actually sit there, 8, 12 hours a day, like doing physical manual work, right? They're strategizing, they're planning, they're having meetings and stuff, but they're not sitting in front of a computer like coding or something, or I don't know, calling clients or offering support or whatever it is, which is fine. I'm not saying they should. I think what we're saying is when you get to that level, you have to remember everything you did to get there and realize that there's all these people beneath you that are doing all this work, and don't go off on someone for something and make yourself feel better than them, right? Because none of us are better than each other. At the end of the day, we're all just human. There's always someone that has more than you do. There's always someone that has less than you do. You always have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. We're just a product of our choices that we make, our genetics, how our genetics influence some of our choices, all those things. And at the end of the day, if you were in my shoes or I was in your shoes, for whoever listening, we'd have similar experiences probably, right?
Right.
You know, if you were born and raised the exact same way I was, you'd probably be pretty similar to my mindset and stuff. So having that empathy for other people is definitely important. And with the construction example, right, going up the chain and the CEO stuff, it's built like a pyramid, right? There's very few execs. There's, you know, more VPs. There's more directors. There's more managers. And then there's a lot of people under them, right? Individual contributors and stuff. And yeah, it's, you know, the pyramid of success, the ladder of success, whatever, all these fucking, you know, graphs and charts and shit. But like for the pyramid, there's less people at the top.
Right.
So yeah, you could say, oh, it's competitive and you need knowledge and you need this and this. But like the point is also that there's less people. So there's going to always be more people that are below you, right? And it reminded me of this image I saw a long time ago on the internet where it kind of shows the hierarchy that we discussed, like the pyramid, but it's birds. So it's like a bunch of seagulls sitting in this pyramid or whatever, and the seagulls are shitting on each other. And it's like from management looking down, all they see is a bunch of shit, and all the workers see looking up is a bunch of assholes. And both people are like, they're fucking not listening to me and they're not listening to me. And I think that's where the humility comes in of saying, I'm not better than you because I'm CEO. You know, you probably technically work maybe more manual labor, maybe harder, maybe strategizing to some people is hard, right? But at the end of the day, like, let's communicate, bridge those gaps, and ultimately like work together for the same goal. Because if people are on different pages in a company, it's going to be hard to run it, right? And that's also where that ego comes into play, right? Of saying, I want my idea to be the successful one.
Yep.
And then somebody else will say, well, I have this idea. And if people vote on you, the other idea than yours, you're like, well, you guys were my friends. What the fuck? You guys are dicks, whatever, blah, blah. Not realizing that that idea may be better. But you have to detach from it from the ego perspective because you're like, well, this was my idea, right? And I've had that happen before where like working on a project, somebody like, oh, I want to go this direction. It's different from what we were doing because I was leading it. I'm like, hey, you know, let's try out your way, right? Maybe your way's better. I'm open to that, but we'll try it. We can try mine, whatever, right? It's like what's best for like the team and the goal overall,
right? And
disconnecting yourself from it, right? And there's times when like I've tried ideas or done things that people give me the freedom to do, and they're not great, and you just be humble in those moments of like, okay, like you learned a lesson from it, right? Something we see a lot too is you know, for like the holidays, whatever, you'll see like people accepting like donations, like Santa's ringing bells and shit like that. What they found is the people that donate the most are the poor or like middle class that were raised poor. The people who donate the least are rich people because rich people tend to be like in rich families and stuff, like it's like ultra rich, where they don't understand the struggles of being poor. So when you understand that struggle or you have humility for other people, then you donate. So if you have, you know, $20 in your bank account, you might donate, you know, $2, which you're like, oh, it's only $2, but that's 10% of what the fuck's in your bank account.
Yep.
Right? That's like a lot of money in comparison to what you have because you're like, well, I'm going to give a little bit because somebody needs it a little bit more than me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same reason why we do this podcast, right? We hop in. We humble ourselves and we tell stories about us struggling, and it's really just to help other people. And it's cool once you do it enough. Trust me, like if you edit enough episodes of yourself listening, you're okay with your voice. You're okay if you say like, shit, fuck, whatever. And eventually you just realize I'm a human. I make mistakes, and that's fine.
Yeah, or you know, this is how I am. This is how I sound.
Yeah. You know,
you try to improve,
but
that's about it. Exactly. There's nothing special. I think another part of this, right, kind of humility and being humble is, and we see, at least I see less and less of this in our society now, is owning our mistakes, right? A lot of people, you know, they'll make a mistake, which is fine. We all make mistakes. But the part that isn't fine is when they don't own up to it, right? They come up with excuses. You know, instead of giving a simple apology, and you know, saying, "Hey, I fucked up. You know, what can we do to remedy this? What can we do to move forward?" A lot of people will just keep coming up with excuses about, no, like, yeah, I might have been wrong, but it's because of this, or I got it wrong because of that, or, you know, it's that person that made me wrong, or made me do this, or made me do that. Instead of realizing that you make your own choices. Like, every person makes their own choices. And you made the choice to whatever you did. And regardless of whatever else impacted that choice and that decision, it was your choice. And so if it was the wrong choice, if you hurt someone, that's on you. And you have to have the humility to own up to your mistake, to apologize, and then to, to move forward. You can't, I don't think people realize this, is that, one, you can't be forgiven until you apologize. Right? Like, if you think that you make a mistake of some kind and someone is just going to forgive you by you making excuses, they're not. They may say they have, it may feel like it, but they're not going to really be able to forgive you until they realize that you're owning up to your mistake, that that you're having that humility to say, I was wrong. I did X, Y, and Z, or I bought the wrong thing, or I accidentally did whatever. I'm sorry. What can I do to make it better? Right? And no, I don't know why it's hard. Kind of going back to the whole social media thing, I think it's because we see so much of this in the media where rich people and people with fame aren't held to the same standards we are. And they can make whatever mistakes they want. They can do whatever they want. In a lot of cases, they don't have any consequences. And so people think, I want to live like that. I want to be like that person. And don't realize that not having consequences isn't a good thing. It makes you forget how to be human. It's dehumanizing. You forget that we all come from the same place, that we're all in this together, right? When people talk about like global warming, right? And some people just don't believe in it, and some people do. The people that don't believe in it, they're gonna go through the same thing we are. If the world heats up, it's not just gonna affect me or Matt or the people in, I don't know, Alaska, or the people in middle of the equator. It's gonna affect everyone, the whole world. And it won't matter if you're rich or poor, if you're old or young, if you're a CEO or a janitor. You're going to get affected by it too. Now, will the CEO probably have a better time with it? Yeah, I mean, they have the money. They'll probably go and do some BS and leave the planet and build spaceships and do other shit. But it's still affecting them, right? Like, regardless, they are still being affected by whatever is happening. I was reading something earlier today, and kind of has to do with a couple weeks ago, Kim Kardashian was like, work harder or something. What was that tweet that she put out?
I think I know what you're talking about. I'm not on social media as much. I heard it on a podcast. What you say?
So I think she said something along the lines of,
she told women in business to work harder. And now some people think it's to generate publicity for her new show.
Yeah. So she was just like, work harder, right? Like, if you want to get something done, like, work harder. And a lot of these CEOs and these mega rich people always say, you got to work harder. You got to do this. You got to do more of this or that. But when you go back and start looking at their stories of most of these, some of the richest people, you start realizing that they didn't work that hard. A lot of them, their families were already rich, or their parents gave them money, or someone did something and they had connections and that's what got them big. It goes back to what we were saying about losing touch with everyone else, right? When you're at that level, you're like, yeah, well, if you work hard, you'll get here. But then you've forgotten that you didn't get there because you worked hard. You got there because your parents were able to give you money, that because you were surrounded by people that helped you, and all this other stuff. And if they can offer that, if you as a CEO or someone, a manager or something, can offer that to your workers, that's how they get better. That's how they grow. And that's how you continue to grow.
It reminds me of something one of my friends told me. Not a shot. I have other friends.
So he says.
And
maybe one of his imaginary friends. Especially if it's a she.
How dare you? Yes, definitely imaginary. She was telling me that, kind of in the same line, that a lot of people get far with hard work, but the real successful people are lucky, right? Right time, right place. Now, of course, the harder you work, the more lucky you kind of are, right? The more connections you build, those types of things, right? The more you can have an opportunity for right time, right place, right? The bigger your network is, and the more that you went to a really good college, a really good school, the more opportunities you had to meet people that can maybe help you get a job down the road, right? So if you've worked hard at networking, you probably have more opportunities, so on and so forth. And she was saying, when it comes to life, a lot of it is going to be luck, right? Luck in where you're born, luck in what your parents did, luck in how much money your parents had, luck in whatever. Maybe luck in genetics and diseases. And she said, I thought this was really beautiful. She said, my goal in life is to be a little bit of luck in somebody else's. How can I help them do that thing, push them, help them look at their resume, whatever. How can I do the things for other people that I've learned how to do and help, so they kind of are in that right opportunity, right time stage, and I help them with luck. Right. They kind of think, oh, I did this, blah, blah, blah. And they did, but also that luck element is somebody who's purposely seeking out help for them. And when it comes to people, that's why anybody who is willing to be helped, I will reach out and help. If somebody says, hey, I need help with my resume, I'll help you. Because it's kind of like I'm being that luck for them. Because I was really lucky and very, very fortunate that the people I've met throughout my life helped me with those things, right? Somebody was a recruiter. One of my friends was a recruiter. Said, I can help you look at your resume. I can help you get a job. Like, let me help you get a job at my company. Cool. Another person, same thing. Like, most of the jobs I've had have been through my network, but I'm very fortunate because I went to a good school and I met people, and I was in a fraternity and I met a shot, right? I was able to have a leadership position in my fraternity. I was president. And then Ashot was president the year after. So we were very close. And then, we got close to the graduates. And the graduates have helped me immensely in my career. But not everybody has those opportunities. So when people get stuck in the small town they grew up in or whatever, it's like I would try to change it for them if I could. But I also recognize that can be very tough. Right? And at the end of the day, that could have very easily been any one of us, right? We're all just going through it. And, there's parts of my life that you can say were unlucky, right? Oh, well, you did this and you went through this traumatic event and this, and this. But at the end of the day, I'm still here. I'm still pushing forward. I'm still going to, grind it out. Tomorrow's another day. And I'm still looking back at the past and thinking, I'm still lucky to be alive, and because of that, I'm very, very thankful for everything that I have. And, typically, like, when because I mentioned I'll be moving soon, I usually I'll be making a post about it, but I just give shit away. Like, I did this with my friend. He was borrowing, like, my old PS4 years ago because I had upgraded to a Pro. And he's like, yeah, my PlayStation broke. And I was like, dude, just borrow mine. And he had it for, like, a year or two. And I was like, okay, dude, you can just have it. Like, well, no, I need to pay you. Like, I don't want your money, dude. Like, you needed it in a time that you wanted to play games and de-stress from work and whatever. I wasn't using it. It's yours.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really care. Like, again, I've been very fortunate and like I've had money to buy things, right? And now that I'm moving, I'm like, cool. If I don't want this stuff, I'm not going to throw it away. I'll donate. I'll donate it if I don't have a use for it. Nobody wants it. But I'm just going to like message all my friends, like, who wants this or this or this or whatever. Because if you can use it and I'm not using it, it's better that somebody does something with it. And it also cuts down on, you know, the waste. Like we talked about climate change for our planet, not having, you know, to somebody who needs a computer monitor can have one of my old ones instead of, you know, going out and buying a new one.
In a landfill. Yeah.
Right. Or going in a landfill, or me sending it to Goodwill and it's sitting in the store forever because nobody's actually going to buy the stupid monitor or whatever.
No, they'll buy it.
Maybe. I mean, I guess like, yeah, if they needed it, and you know, sure. But yeah, you know, it's just like I'm lucky to be here and the stuff that I have. So
yeah, I mean, all your experiences have made you who you are, right? And similarly, all of my experiences have made me who I am. So, kind of like what you said, none of us got here all by ourselves, right? Everyone had help, and there's a good like saying or whatever. I don't know, whatever it is, but it's like, yes, you might be able to push a boulder up a hill, but how much easier would it be if you had someone else there to help you? Now, what if you had 50 other people or 100 other people, right? How much easier does it make it to push that boulder up the hill? And that's what it's all about. It's about having that community and having these people around you, and a little bit of having luck, right? Kind of like what you said. We are where we are because we've had a little bit of luck. We've had people around us that have been willing to help us. Obviously, we've had to put our hard work in too. It's not like you can sit there and do nothing and, you know, things will just happen for you. So you have to do your part, but there's also this other aspect of luck and being at the right place in the right time. And I think to round this out, so the event that Matt and I went to, it was an affiliate event of Burning Man, which most of you have probably heard of, some of you may have not. But Burning Man is built on these 10 principles. And I think all of these are important, and they're very important when you're there and experiencing this event. But I think they're just important in regular everyday life too, because they're kind of like these basic things that I think people need to follow and that society has forgotten about, right? The first principle of Burning Man is radical inclusion, right? Not being racist, not being respecting everyone, not stereotyping people, not doing any of this. Everyone is included. The next one is gifting. You know, kind of like what Matt was saying, right? Not trying to take advantage of people, but gifting people stuff and helping one another and being there for them, whether you're gifting your time or whether you're gifting something like Matt's monitors, right? But giving, right? Next is decommodification. And obviously we live in a society where money buys things and does stuff. So this one's kind of harder, but you can think of this as, you know, instead of like getting rid of money completely, where at these events that is the case, there is no money. But in our everyday lives, again, this whole thing of gifting and not having to make a profit on everything, right? Like what we saw recently with all these high gas prices is that gas companies have made the highest profits they've ever made in their lives, ever since they've existed, right? And that's horrible because the rest of us are paying all these high bills and they're just raking in all these profits. You would think that, yeah, if I understand gas prices are a little bit higher, we pay a little bit more, they should be making less profits too and kind of meeting everyone in the middle. So that's more of what like decommodification stands for. radical self-reliance, right? That goes back to what I was saying, is you have to put in your work. You have to be able to do your part before, before you can create these opportunities and meet these people and do something else. No one is going to help someone that's not doing something. You see examples of this all the time. If someone's car breaks down and they get out and they start trying to push their car, right? People will come. They'll stop. I've done this. I've stopped and I've gone to help someone that was trying to push their car. But if someone is just sitting in their car doing nothing, right? No one's going to come and help them and do anything. One, they're not going to know that they need help. And two, why would you go and help someone who's not willing to help themselves? Again, barring any handicaps or any conditions that they may have that they're not able to. Radical self-expression, being yourself, right? Being an individual, being unique. Not, again, in today's society, we see everyone try to be like influencers and wear the same clothes as, that celebrity or this celebrity, or drive this car or that car. You got to be yourself and express yourself in whatever way that is, and not try to be like someone else. Communal effort, right? Again, being a community, helping each other, supporting your neighbors, your friends, your family, whatever that is, all of that. Civic responsibility, right? We live in a society, right? In a civilized society. And a part of being in a civilized society is everyone contributing to that society so we can uphold it, so we can continue having the civilization that we live in. So, and people forget this sometimes, right? It's not, the society we have, the structure we have, it doesn't just stand all by itself. It's built by people. And if you want to change something, you have the ability to. We live in a country here where you have the ability to go and change something, to, propose a bill, to, go to your congressman or congresswoman and, what is it called when they go and they try to change stuff?
Lobby,
yeah, exactly. Lobby them and stuff, right? We have that ability, and we should be able to use it. If you don't like something, go lobby for it, make a change. Leaving no trace. I try to do this as much as I can. It's a very big part of Burning Man too, but leaving places better than you found them, right? Not trashing our world, kind of like what Matt was saying, not throwing away his monitor, instead trying to repurpose it, trying to gift it to someone else that might use it. If you're outside, don't throw your stuff out into the street or trash the forest or the ocean, right? Clean up after yourself. Participation, right? Participating in everything that's going on. If you're in government, right, or if you want to be participating in that and being part of it, if there are events going on, taking part in them, whatever it is, but just participating in whatever is going on. And finally, immediacy, which I think is probably the most important one for our podcast, because, right, we talk about a lot of mental health here, and we talk about a lot of anxiety here. And both anxiety and depression and a lot of other mental health issues are because we're not living in the moment. That we're thinking about the future, thinking about the past, or thinking about all of these things that can happen, or all these things that have happened, or whatever it is, instead of being in the here and now and living moment to moment, and being present, doing, that can be anything. When you're with your friends, being an active listener, engaging in conversations instead of being on your phone. When you're driving, making sure you're paying attention to the road and you're not texting or doing other stuff, when you're out with, I don't know, your friends or your family, being there with them, really being engaged with what's going on, talking to them about their lives and learning more about them instead of, thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner tomorrow or what this celebrity said yesterday or whatever that may be. Anyway, those were the 10 principles of Burning Man. And this is probably the longest episode we've had in a while. But I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Any closing remarks, Matt?
I'll just like to close it by saying, bitch, be humble.
Good call. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. And again, we'll be back next week with another episode. And we'll only have a couple more weeks left till maybe on a prolonged break because I may be out. So we'll make sure we make these next couple episodes very good for all of our listeners. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you guys soon.